Started. Okay. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Queen's Dead. I am Sanjeet. I have Dhruv with me, and we have a very special recurring guest, Arijit, who's recorded with us for over 15 hours. I don't know how many hours, but you can check out the other episodes where we
surprised that he keeps on returning, but yes.
But today we are talking about horror recommendations, to be very specific, but we are going to diverge into other territories, like
horror is big. Okay, so
like how we
diverge into horror,
like how we do with other Arijit. We've done with other Arijit episodes as well. But yeah, here we'll go with recommendations that we'd like you to watch. And okay, Dhruv, would you want to?
I have a lot of questions. Can I go first with the questions?
Yeah, we'll go.
Yes, okay. I'll say something, but after letting Dhruv ask.
Yeah.
No, okay. So basically, my thing with this, I went on a sort of horror spree recently. So I wanted to ask you guys, like, is there something that you guys will define as a horror film, right? And this is like a question I've kind of kept on thinking about. So basically, there are dramas and other types of films which terrify me equally sometimes, right? So like for you guys, what exactly is horror? Like, does it need to have that genre tag? Does it need to have like a ghost to be qualified as horror? Like what's the metric by which you think?
Arijit, you go first.
I will go first. Achha.
Yeah.
Okay. So why? Because I'm in this no bullshit art house phase. That's
no. Just like that.
No, but it's a nice question actually, because I and incidentally, there's this. I was about to recommend this film, but let's just talk about. There's this Filipino film, Kisap Mata. So Kisap Mata is. I'll just say, like, I'm not saying anything about it. So Kisap Mata is not. Has no connection to horror or anything like that. It's just a story. It's a real life event, and it's just been filmed. But when you watch that film, you're constantly in dread. And even we had this conversation with some of the friends in Letterboxd where they said, even I said that I'm very surprised that this is categorized under horror in Letterboxd. They said that this is there because you're constantly in that fear of it. So I think there should not be any such tags as such in horror. Having said that, of course, if you go back to the genre's past, like how Universal started, like when Universal started, I mean, at that point of time, now we see Frankenstein as normal Frankenstein. At that point of time, it was pretty much, they were like scared, there were screams and there were chains. So fear-inducing thing. And basically, the idea of doing horror was like sitting in the dark and, we're all of us sitting and sharing that collective fear, collective trauma. I think that is how it started, and that's why these tropes developed. Squeaky doors, floorboards doing squeaky sounds, there is creaks,
crows.
And exactly. so I think that's why we talk about tropes and all that. But now horror has expanded so much, it's literally difficult to categorize something as very specifically horror in that sense, because I mean we have all these subgenres as well, slasher,
actually,
and gore and all these, and there is the psychological horror, for example,
existential horror. I don't know, like there's like you can just keep on going on, right? With this, just like which you have slept through, Sanjeet, just to piss off Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
Now, in fact, I'll say, I mean, I'm not liking art house films right now, but Ingmar Bergman made these films, and some of which are like properly categorized under horror, but if we peel off those layers, it's just basically the same existential dread, the existential horror speaks about in all of his films. So technically, a Seventh Seal is also supposed to be a horror. I mean, it's showing medieval plague. So it's also, in a way, it's horror. Or maybe Winter Light is also, I can't believe I'm saying Winter Light is a horror, but in a way,
but honestly, that's a great example, Ajit. Like I've been thinking about Bergman only in relation to this, actually. Just one of the recurring voices that is like horrifying in my head is Cries and Whispers. May her illness's voice, and she like shrieks about 4 or 5 times at the beginning of the film. I'm not spoiling anything as such, but that to me sends like chills down my spine. Like to me, that does, like for me at least, that would count as horror, at least that moment would. I don't know if the film would or anything, but like that chilling feeling that's rooted in like genuine fear and emotion. I think that's that if it gives you like a primal effect of like chill down your spine or like jump scare, which is I guess I guess that's my other question which I was leading up to. Like, is there like a hierarchy in which like you can judge which if effect of like horror is better for you or worse for you? Like, is a like the big example here is like jump scare is lesser than chill down your spine, like that way. Like, do you guys like categorize that, or is it just like how does that go? Sanjeet, you can go first considering you.
No. So I was just thinking about the same question, the previous question today itself, because I was listening to our Midnight Mass podcast, the episode for Midnight Mass. I hadn't
listened to our podcast
because I hadn't heard after.
So Sanjeet is leading the metaverse.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hadn't heard what we spoke about, so even I had forgotten about what we spoke about in the episode. So I was just wondering about this, a very similar thing, and you wrote it in the because you uploaded it. You wrote it in description of how about like the art house and mainstream mixture of Mike Flanagan's horror universe and all of that. And I was kind of thinking similarly on the lines how horror is kind of so diverse because most of it is driven by the fact you can have this collective thing with people, and it you can have immediate reactions to it. It is very instantaneous, right? And some horror films or shows have this long lasting effect, like like if you don't get that whole horrific thing happening at instantaneously, you get affected by it post your viewing of it. I was just wondering about it. I didn't have like a question or something, but like how Arijit said, we've given all these tags and all just so that it can classify as something of as part of an experience, I think. So that makes it easier. That's it.
I mean, that's also how like critics will write, right? That with like genre smashing or like genre jumping or like whatever. Like it's easier.
Whatever.
Also,
It's a thing. I'll say like it's a very common thing. I think I'll speak of Godard again. I think I'm bullshitting art house and I'm quoting all these names. But anyway, so Godard had, like, there was Satyajit had once said that why a lot of filmmakers try to emulate Godard, but they fail because Godard understood the form inside out first, and then he broke the rules. I think any genre, not just horror, any genre, thriller or western or war or anything. We have the tropes, we have those elements, and some of those tropes subconsciously or like somehow they creep into it. The tropes are there for a reference, but they should not be like limitations. Like if
absolutely.
I mean, in cinema we can't do that, right? I mean, anywhere in art we can't do that. We have to have specific tropes. I mean, then we have to discard a lot of great horrors and a lot of films. Conversely, a lot of films which are art house will also be excluded. These are also not horror.
Most A24 stuff.
That's
the whole entire ghost story, like that film, the ghost story. So that will be like, no, this can't be a horror. But that's like one of the greatest horrors, I think. I mean,
this is David Lowery's A Ghost Story.
David Lowery's, exactly.
Ghost Story,
It's one of my favorite films, and I'll have to say like it's one of the greatest horrors ever made. So
it is like the existential chill that film gives is
totally. I couldn't sleep for nights. I mean, and I was not even. I mean, while watching the film, I was like, "What is this happening?" And right now, as I speak, I wish I could switch on my camera. I'm having goosebumps thinking about that because stuck in a space-time vortex forever and ever and ever. So long that you are not able to. So I mean, totally. So
I mean, even like for me, something like 2001 is flat out horror, like in many
absolutely
senses. When I watched it, I was just like,
even
it's so creepy and it's so like full of like that strangeness, not mystery but like strangeness.
Hell is speaking like that day.
I used to get anxiety listening to, like, I've rewatched 2000 to Halka. All those dialogues used to make me very anxious all the time.
I think that's pretty intentionally horrific also, like on Kubrick's part,
very
right?
intentional.
And Kubrick very well understood what horror actually stood for. I mean, not I mean, not considering Shining as his, the true blue horror thing. I think
Mhm,
Clockwork
mhm.
Orange also works as a,
Totally,
although
yeah,
it's like a
totally.
satire,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a horrifying satire.
it's a horrifying,
Horrifying.
horrifying.
Exactly. It's horrifying.
Because, and he was doing it in 70s when people didn't even understand these things
Early 70s,
of
right? I think
early
Clockwork
70s.
Orange.
And if you, it was 71, I think, but or whatever. I think if you look at it very closely,
Mhm,
the themes and everything
mhm.
in Clockwork in Orange were if you put it in a film, I don't know if you guys have seen. I mean, Dhruv has seen the horror anthology, Ghost Stories anthology on
I
Netflix,
have.
the
Uh-huh.
Dibakar Banerjee one.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
You can literally take those themes and put it in that, and it's exactly the same thing. It's just
He has
the
Divakar Banerjee has taken from like
yeah,
Yeah.
which I absolutely love. The
totally,
shot,
totally.
the horror shot.
The only
So I
shot.
mean, the only shot,
The
and
only one, yeah.
and that's such a good way to use metaphor for horror. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right,
it's
right,
implied
right.
horror and everything else that comes
Right.
with it, but it's
the,
like
no, it's it functions on two levels, right? It's
Right.
functioning on the messaging level and it's functioning
exactly,
on
exactly,
the
exactly.
actually
Yeah,
scary
Mhm,
level. It's not
mhm,
like
mhm.
prioritizing one over the other.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think
So, in fact, I think it's nice you mentioned Kubrick, Sanjeet. That
Hmm.
I mean, I think Kubrick is kind of one of the finest horror directors ever. Because if you see,
Yeah.
even Eyes Wide Shut,
Eyes wide shut.
it's I mean, what the fuck is that? Just
Yeah.
censor this one. I mean, so and even like that film, the one with the Vietnam War, I forgot the name.
Full Metal
Full
Jacket.
Metal
Full Metal
Jacket.
Jacket.
Hmm.
Even that is, I mean, it works in that same space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
I think
go back,
I think his style itself does. No, like his style in all of his films is so like
and
precise and like
he's like very
kind of
intentionally he will
yeah.
make it this very cold and calculated kind
Meticulous.
of
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
so that you are freaked out because
Yeah.
people
Hmm.
I
normally
mean,
don't speak like this.
that's why I think a lot of people who like not ape but are inspired by his style, like their films also have that quality, right? I mean, Yorgos Lanthimos being the
Lanthimos.
first
Lanthimos,
one,
yeah, totally.
who's like
Killing of
just
a
to
Sacred
mention it
Deer.
because I'm not going to mention later. The Killing of a Sacred Deer is
Sacred
one of
Deer.
the few
Fantastic
films which
film.
has legitimately made me ill in the cinema
Agreed.
hall.
That's
I was
Yeah.
feeling
fantastic.
sick, and it's a compliment, yeah, that I was feeling sick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He does that. That's anxiety
Yeah.
inducing.
Even
yeah.
I mean, he's though actually very, very much inspired by Kubrick for Favorite also from
Yeah.
Barry Lyndon.
Oh, Barry
But that's
Lyndon,
a
yeah.
Totally.
separate thing. But all these filmmakers now, I mean, look at like if you look at, let's say, horror films in the 70s, like the classics like Rosemary's Baby
Mhm,
and then Exorcist, right?
mhm.
Those are like the peak. I mean,
Peak,
the top
right,
two,
right.
if you want to.
And Shining, club that in. Just because I'm here,
Do
you
you
don't
want
need to
to?
exclude
Do
it.
you want
No,
to put
Shining is
Shining?
80s now.
Okay,
Yeah.
70s you're saying. Okay,
Mm.
got it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But was Rosemary's Babies was
No,
60s,
Rosemary's
right?
Baby was 69 or something,
69.
but
67,
Polanski
69.
was
Yeah.
on a run. Like he did
Absolutely,
this
yeah.
Tenant and
And what was the
Repulsion.
other thing? Repulsion. Yeah,
Repulsion.
Yeah.
Fantastic film.
And then now you look at the current horror thing, that is the horror new wave, if you want to call it. I mean, like I think 20 years down the line we may call this the new horror wave. Considering whatever Flanagan, Eggers, and
Ari Aster.
Ari Aster have been doing, I feel. I mean, the new A24 thing, which has been like a cult, which has like a cult following, and I think you look at that and you see, I think there has been development in that genre very well. Like we've
Right.
developed. It has developed as a genre.
It has
Can I
moved
be
past
honest?
that
It's facing a proper backlash of late.
But see, it's what see. Sometimes it's like we don't know what a certain film would have been at that present moment, right? And maybe looking back, it works so well, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going through that phase, and today's times are very divisive anyway,
That's
more or
true,
less.
yeah.
We
No,
have so many opinions on so many things, I feel. So
Yeah.
I think divisive opinions are a part of today's culture, I feel.
Yeah, that's. But I think in that sense, I'll just quote one thing from Tarantino. He said once about westerns. He said like, I'm not a fan of the art house westerns because you still have to make a western first. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing that I don't know. Maybe I'm just feeling repulsive about this, but just about horrors these days. Since you mentioned this thing, like these days I see. I mean, I'm not specifically saying A24, but mostly there's this attempt to be woke or throw in that politically
Ha!
correct, political
That
messaging
that for sure happens. I
that
agree with that.
overpowers the genre. Like
But
I'm
that
like,
overpowers any genre.
Everything.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
So I mean, and for me, it's like, I mean, if I'm here to watch a horror, I have to be scared
Hmm.
first, freak me out first. The
Yeah, yeah.
messaging will come behind it. If it's
Yeah.
genuinely freaking me out,
Absolutely.
there has to
Absolutely.
be something behind it. But it,
Strangely enough, this is like
yeah.
perfect examples of two films, one written
Mhm.
by Jordan Peele, not directed by him, but one written and directed by Jordan Peele. Like this is
Candyman.
this is the two sides of it. Like the first side of it,
Hmm.
I think, where the social messaging and the horror parts mesh well. I mean, I still don't think Get Out is like a great horror film. I think it's a much more potent
Hmm.
social
Satire?
message horror film,
Right.
so kind of,
Satire.
or whatever you want to put it like that.
Mhm.
But that is like a great example of how I guess it works successfully. But like I think
Hmm.
Candyman is the one in which you can, I at least felt that the latest
Mhm.
Candyman,
Mhm.
that the social message was so heavily placed over the
Oh.
slasher film that the slasher film kind of just got
Hmm.
lost somewhere in the
That's
mess of it.
disappointing, man.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
I'm a
yeah,
big
but
fan
that's
of
again only me.
the
But I
old one.
know it's faced a lot of similar criticism on the fact that the subtext is not subtext at all. It is
No,
like,
I'm saying like that's disappointing because the original Candyman is so fantastic because it's
Yeah.
going in.
I watched it
you
very
also watched it.
recently.
Yeah.
I also watched it very recently because I want to watch the new one. That's
No,
Same.
the new one
For the
has
same reason.
interesting things in it, though. Arijit. Like, there's definitely interesting things. It's just,
yeah. No, I'm
yeah.
just saying like, I mean, so people like say James Wan is not doing this, but James Wan is not there to do this. Like he's freaking you out. Of course, there's one message behind that. Obviously, he's not. Maybe I'm not
Yeah.
comparing him with any other director. So
Yeah.
there are these recent complaints I hear, like, "Oh my God, this is like just fear for the sake of fear." Where's the subtext behind? The subtext will follow.
Yeah, exactly.
The important
Subtext
thing
is
is,
always there, I think. Like,
right,
Yeah,
if you are
yeah.
going for a genre, the
Yep.
genre has to be there first. And it's
Yeah.
not like I'm saying like it's a mandatory. Sometimes the genre can also be subverted in a way.
Or actually, yeah. Or maybe
So-
if the story commands it, it'll come naturally to it.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean,
even-
it's the whole thing, right? If you experience something, you learn from it more than if someone
Right,
lectures you
right.
about it. So I think that
I
is
was
the
like to see Sanjeet was giving this Dibakar Banerjee's short,
Yeah.
that example. So even in that, like, so first we are like freaked out. We are not, when we're watching it, we are not thinking about the dystopian future and whatever the commentary is. I'm not
Yep.
telling that. But there are like these little dialogues when they're saying कि जो उन्हें खाते हैं उनको वो नहीं खाते. They don't eat. Yeah, those who prey on, so they don't eat them. So
Yeah.
those kind of things. Like then they're saying how pricey are onions. So the onions are like gold. So
Yep.
they're so pricey these days. So
Yep.
there's just going these little small things, but it's freaking you out step by step.
Yeah,
You have
it's a
to
very
cross
sort
that
of
bridge.
it's masking the subtext, right? Or masking the message in genre,
Right.
which
And
is
knowing
the I
Dibakar
think
Banerjee,
Yeah.
it might have been very difficult for him to do that because he's one that kind of a person who wants to go straight head on political, but there
Yeah.
he had to stay in his
Yeah,
horror.
I mean, I think
sphere.
he's done that even recently with his more sort of YRF
Sandeep or-
movies or Sandeep or Pinky, which we've
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
endlessly about on this podcast. So we'll refrain to do it more. So Sanjeet is frozen right now. So he's back.
Sanjeet
Is
is
he
coming
back?
and going.
Yes, Sanjeet. How are you?
Late night internet problems, my friend.
Okay.
This is also
See,
very.
are you
creepy.
sure Are you sure there's not one of those whatever host movie ghosts somewhere around here?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
I have to sleep also, my friend.
Okay. Okay, fine.
But anyway.
Okay. Do you have
Carry on.
anything to say, Sanjeet, on the whole subtext and text
No.
and horror films and all
I
that?
mostly agree with whatever Arijit said.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
before
to be honest, we've answered whatever I was going to ask. So there is nothing else to ask, honestly. The only thing I was going to ask, one more thing, I guess, is how do like 70s and 80s horror films, and I guess I'm specifically mentioning like Exorcist, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, the original, not recent films. Like how do they like, how do they, what terms do people, new audiences give to them in like a modern horror landscape, right? Because I was doing this thing on The Exorcist once where the reception on it has changed so much since the time it had released, right? Earlier, it was the most frightening thing people had ever seen. Now, a lot of people find it comical because there's like the effects are so dated, I guess, in some senses, right?
But it's been derived into so many other things. It was bound to happen, right?
It is
Yeah,
become a
it
pop
was.
culture phenomenon. So yeah.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, I, as someone who watched it much later, right? Like I watched it, I think 4 or 5 years back now.
Okay.
I had heard both sides of this so much. The sort of horror, it's the scariest thing ever, and
Okay.
the oh, it's dated, like everyone laughs at it, right?
Right.
And then for me, the weirdest thing was it was scary because it was so sad. Like the
Yeah.
whole film had like the
I get it.
saddest tone to
Right.
it. Like it was
Right.
quiet and bleak and disturbing just because like how broken people became after like the spirit captured one of the innocent people. Like to me, that aspect, like I never anticipated that. And maybe, and I always say that I think I was maybe wrong footed by the first sequence, because the first sequence of The Exorcist is one of the most creepy things I've seen
Actually,
personally.
yeah.
I expected like directly to go into this town where you have like this thing with this family and all that. You're tuned like that with modern horror, I think, in some ways.
Yeah.
Here, this goes directly to some desert and it's like completely quiet
Actually.
and nothing. And I just, the experience of watching it just completely wrong-footed me, and every expectation I had of it was upended in that sense, right? But like, how do you pitch a horror film of like 70s and 80s if you're recommending it to people, right? What do you pitch it as? Do you pitch it as like a psychological horror because it has more like of that quiet tension and not a lot of the jump scares? Or do you like pitch it as a straight up horror film? Like if you were recommending, that is. This has become a much more convoluted question than I thought.
I don't know if there's a right way to recommend it to someone, because I feel if one has the right kind of an experience, Exorcist will still work, I feel. Yeah. I mean, there's no way Exorcist won't work unless you're being disturbed by a phone or people. I mean, if given the right condition. I mean, and this is just according to
popcorns
me.
too.
I mean, whatever works for you. I mean, whatever works for any individual person. I think Exorcist works irrespective of the time. I feel. I mean, this is the whole idea of timeless horror, right?
Exactly.
And I feel 10 years down the line, or maybe like 15 years down the line, we'll have films that have been derived from whatever today's horror has been.
Of course,
yeah. And then that will become, and then 15 years later we'll be talking about, oh, was Midsommar actually horrific?
It's not.
I mean, it is for me. I mean, it is for me. So
I was being,
No, but Midsommar is like
let's take some other example. Let's take some other.
No,
example.
no, I was kidding. I was kidding. Yeah, I was.
Let's take The Witch only. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, but because people can straight up look at The Witch and call it not horrific at all, right?
Yeah.
But then it still is in some sense, right? So it's the same. I think whatever you want to call conundrum or whatever. But
interesting you mentioned this, because there's this film, A24 film that released not so legally 2-3 days ago. It's called Lamb.
Right.
I haven't watched it, but there were a lot of talks about Lamb, this, that. So someone mentioned the Lamb is also a horror film. So I mean, in terms of, because it's going back to referencing some of those 90s films. I don't know which films they were talking about. I have to read that exactly. So I think this, especially now that we have, in terms of content like story or themes, just saturated at such a level. Obviously, there's some amount of things that will be recycled. I mean, you mentioned Midsommar. For me, I was like, I mean, this is the taking from Wicker Man, or like taking from Haxan, and taking from so all those gothic films. But I mean, that's also integral part of recycle. I'm in fact surprised that The Exorcist hasn't been rebooted, or like no one has made an attempt to like remake or do something. I would be interested if it's done in a very contemporary setting.
I was quite aware about Wicker Man when I went into Midsommar, but it still worked for me, Midsommar, because of whatever Ari Aster was doing. It was really effective.
No, but if have the context, then it's okay. But sometimes if you
exactly my point, yeah.
I honestly think if I didn't watch The Wicker Man, I would like Midsommar much more. I thought it was very derivative, like to me at least. and
It is
didn't work for
extremely,
me.
even his earlier film Hereditary is so much derivative of Innocence and Don't Look Now, right?
I mean, is
I
it?
mean, Don't Look Now, so it's completely inspired,
Innocence
right?
was more like, okay, yeah.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean,
No,
creating a family drama which is a part of like a horror film, which it doesn't really. I mean, that is what Hereditary is, really, right?
okay.
I
I
mean,
watched The Innocence
dealing with
just now, and it's going to be one of my recommendations.
dealing
So
with dealing with trauma and stuff like that.
yeah,
Uh,
trauma horror. That's like
so I mean, Ari
very
Aster is completely inspired by those horror films. I think
Ito said no that Hereditary is not a horror film.
it is not. Yeah, I mean that's how
Is
he
it not?
perceives it.
I think it's
Ari
pretty
Aster
creepy.
I
keeps
mean,
doing like he
it is
says
creepy, but I think that's part of the whole genre things that he's
But
trying
then
to do.
what about like the end where it goes completely horror? Like what?
I mean, that's the whole fun part, right?
that's why I think it
Okay.
was like, I mean, it was divided into one section of people who were like, this is the problem, one section of people were
My problem with the film is that like it's always been that. Like it's
Yeah.
too strict.
I know.
I'm accumulating people to kill me, right? Because I have told that The Shining I don't
All
like,
hot
Hereditary I don't
takes.
like, Midsommar I don't like. So, yeah.
No, it's fine, I
Hereditary I
think.
like. Sorry, I just don't like the last half. Anyways, we should move on to recommendations.
Recommendations. Okay, yeah.
Who's going first?
I'll go first because my recommendations will end really quickly. I don't really talk a lot about them.
Okay.
In general.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first one which I'll recommend is an Assamese film called Kothanodi, which is directed by Bhaskar Zarika. And I watched it last year, whatever, I think sometime, and I stumbled upon it without any context. So Bhaskar Zarika's name I had heard because of the Amis, yeah, which everyone had heard about. I hadn't seen Amis at that point. So Bhaskar Zarika was just a name who had made Amis, and Amis was everything that people spoke about for a fairly good amount of time, and it was like very people didn't know about it and all of that, whatever. And Kothanodi was such a different experience because first of all, it's a different language, so I'm getting to learn so much about that culture, and it is based on a folklore, right? So another such a vast experience that is in terms of just like viewing activity, and it is not really horror in terms of how you've come to know horror, like how we've discussed before. It is more supernatural, which makes sense because it's like a fable, right? It's a fable kind of a story. And there are like multiple stories that are converging, and some of them don't converge, but they're existing in the same ecosystem. And to talk of it, it's so well directed because it cuts from one storyline to another storyline, but you remember everything what is happening in every storyline.
Right.
And like I'll just read out. I mean, there's no synopsis as such. It's just 4 different tales, and it's reimagined about like a story about different mothers who are like are demons, or or actually it's about not just mothers, it's about women only, I think. But it's just bloody good. I don't know how else to describe it without giving away.
That's the point where you say like horror. I think even like thematically, it's saying about the horrors of women in this country. And especially from our cultural past, the trauma of women, how they were oppressed. And I mean, they were almost like a commodity. So I think that's where, I mean,
that's the whole thing. I mean, there's this one storyline though where I just felt like punching that lady who's like, I mean, it was an extreme reaction because that story would make you reach at that, reach your threshold at some point, because it is very much, depressing to see one of those stories happen. Arijit, you probably have gotten the one that I'm talking about is the mother track, which is the stepdaughter track, which I was verifying.
Sanjeet, this episode is coming after Midnight Mass, in which you have also wanted to punch another lady. So,
God,
there's a commonality appearing here.
No, but then I mean, with that, I spoke. I gave I sort of reasoned it out about those like those characters, right? Those certain characters, which are twisted according to your tale, right? Here, the tale is only completely twisted. That the characters don't really have to do anything. It's just the tale, which is extremely antagonizing in itself.
It's actually very minimally made film.
Very minimally made. Yeah. So I mean.
So wait, can I ask a question, because I have not seen the film? I want to see it. Where is it?
It was available on movie, but now I think it's available. It's streaming on Sony Live, along with Bhaskar Hazarika's Amis as well.
Got it.
I mean, Amis is also a recommendation for people who like to watch a horror film.
Fantastic.
But wait, so the fable-like nature of it is a bit like the Guillermo del Toro films, or is it more like to do with Tumbad or something like that?
It's not really gothic. I mean,
it's very Assamese kind of.
It's very specific,
culturally rooted.
Very culturally rooted. It's very culturally rooted.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know what better way to describe, because it's not like it's not really I mean, it's a reimagining, I think, of the whole fable. So I think it's the whole rooted nature comes in along with the specifics of that place.
Got it.
So even if you're unaware about it, it will still work for you as a film.
Yeah, because the universality of the themes, I mean, they
work
through these specific points, the specific characters, specific location of the story, kind of filters through it. Yeah.
Got it. So how does this compare to something like Bulbul, which I know you don't like?
Bulbul is more expressionistic in that sense.
So more gothic and all that. Sanjay Leela Bhansali.
This is not gothic art. This is like completely watered down version of anything.
Bulbul that Sanjay Leela Bhansali taking Tagore and Satyajit Ray.
My God, what is this description?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Bulbul. The seed of the film is Satyajit Ray's film Charulata,
absolutely.
Wife, which is actually a short story by Tagore. Short story is actually a self-reflection on Tagore's own life, because when Tagore was a child, he was I think 13-14 years old, his elder brother got married, and he had this relation with his sister-in-law, like a lot of affection and understanding, because those days, because his sister-in-law was this kind of a Kadambari Devi, she was this kind of person she was intellectual, she used to write and she used to sing and all that, but she never got attention from her husband. It's totally Charulata. So
absolutely Charulata.
Right. Minus that horror thing they added, and the Bhansali thing, the color and all that thing.
It's a collision, like a colliding three masterful things to create something.
Very
you can fill in the blanks. Whoever likes it, I don't mind the film actually. So
I mean it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, but like people who know where it's coming from, they'll immediately we were actually and there were a lot of professors I know and scholars. They were like, "Oh my God, this is too much of Tagore and Charulata."
Absolutely, I mean, I never thought about it that way, but now that I think it is.
Now you like it even less.
There is, I'll tell you. In fact, there's.
I mean, I don't like it. I'm still okay with it. I mean, I'm not saying.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of similarity with. There's this Bangladeshi author Humayun Ahmed. He writes this. He has a fictional character called Misir Ali. Misir Ali is a psychiatrist, and he also dabbles in supernatural horror. So people consult him for their. So each story is like that. So someone faces some supernatural problem, they consult Misir Ali.
Have you seen this movie called Pari?
I have.
Doesn't it have like the similar elements that? The similar elements.
Pari, the one which copied from Let the Right One In.
Is it copied?
Is it?
Pari is
Let the Right One. I mean, there's no vampire. Like it's not vampire. I don't think.
It's not vampire, but that entire that bond with the protagonist.
I mean,
No, because this also has a very Bangladeshi connection with it, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember
that has two. Right. They comes from the same production house, right? Anushka Sharma's.
Right.
Yeah. They have this.
Okay.
So so that was.
So Pari is your second recommendation?
No way. My second has to be. I was like very very divided if I should. Like a Cronenberg or a Carpenter movie has to be there.
Definitely has to be Cronenberg.
But Carpenter, I
Carpenter is
think
great too.
Carpenter is great. I think the thing a lot of people have seen and all of that. I think, and I think I discussed the thing in my sci-fi episode also. So for the sake of saying something else, I'll just say Cronenberg's The Fly. I mean, actually, you can pick up any Cronenberg movie. It's one of my favorites. But I'll just say Fly because it just supersedes anything Cronenberg has made. I think Fly is The Fly. So for people who are like completely unaware, it's a body horror film. So there's this another thing that I really like. I mean, I don't really like how I mentioned in Midnight Mass. I'm not really a horror genre fan as such. Horror genre being the ghost apparitions and all those things that are happening, the jump scares and all that. So I really, really dig the subgenres. Like I'm happy with a Halloween, with a Scream.
You're happy with Halloween Kills?
No, not. I'm talking about Carpenter. Like, why are you going just for the sake of joke? Huh? I get it. Okay, but
what else, Sanjeet? You actually think I would expect
body horror, you know, and cosmic horror with The Thing, let's say, or Mandy also, if you want to.
I was actually going to say Mandy, but you
Panos
snatched
Cosmatos.
it. Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, I'm just saying I really dig these kind of films, body horror especially.
And yet you haven't watched Titan. I mean, how is it possible?
I mean, it'll happen. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Okay, then you will love it. Okay, now I know. Like, if you love body horror, then you love it.
So The Fly was one of my earlier films that I watched, and Cronenberg. I just discovered Cronenberg from one of the Cinema Blend articles and all of that. You know those typical lists like horror movies that you should watch. And I watched Fly and I was blown away by it. I was scared by it. I was invested in the love story of it. It was emotional also. It was dramatic horror fulfillment of like, in a sense, for me as a viewer. So if I had to put the story in a sense, in one way for people who are listening, it would be this person becomes a fly. Like a literal fucking fly. I mean, oh shit, I shouldn't use the word, but anyway.
We've exceeded the limits in any case.
I have said it twice already.
You did? I forgot, but whatever.
You were subtle, I think. So,
because I just wanted to emphasize on the fact that a person actually
this
becomes
is what
a fly.
the metamorphosis, basically.
Metamorphosis, yeah.
And I'll say a little bit about that. But yeah, Sanjeet, like,
Go ahead. It's okay.
No, you say it.
No, I was just saying I watched Videodrome as well, and Videodrome is also one of my favorites. And that also scarred me in a lot of ways, possibly one can imagine. But The Fly was on another level of functioning as a film because the way it uses, and I'd seen The Thing also, and that also uses body horror in a very, very good way, right?
Yeah.
But this film just, it engages you more on an emotional level also, because there is this love track sort of right. Love track that is going on, and I was like, man, I am feeling for this person, this creature, and I didn't expect this to happen ever at that point.
And it's actually in a way a very tragic kind of a film.
It is it's a tragedy only. So I mean, it moved me. So, I mean, it's a horror as well. So, I mean, The Fly, watch it. It's fantastic. It's a Cronenberg movie. I mean, watch anything made by Cronenberg, but definitely watch.
Anything horror. I'm not like, do you guys like his other work? Like his
Eastern Promises, I really like.
I love, I haven't watched that, but I love.
I'm not the biggest Eastern.
History of Violence.
That's good.
Fantastic.
I really like that.
Yeah. I haven't seen the weird doctor movie that he made. I don't know what was like the Fassbender, Keira Knightley.
Oh yeah, I found it super dry, like really.
I haven't seen it. But
that's
really
a dangerous method. I think
a dangerous method. Yeah.
About Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud.
I have no idea about that, but I really like Eastern Promises, and from Karthik, who has also seen what was the Robert Pattinson movie he made? Cosmopolis, and there was this another movie,
Maps to the Stars.
Yeah. Karthik really likes those movies. He's like,
those have like a very dedicated cult fan base, and then everyone else hates them. So Yeah.
But have you
So,
guys like watched his son's
Yeah.
Brandon Cronenberg's film?
I did. I loved it. I loved it. I
Possessor.
mean,
Possessor,
I'm
yeah.
and it stands on its own. That's the
Yeah.
best
So
part.
I was
mean,
like kind of think like I mean, can he hold up to like his father's legacy? There's this whole weight and
exactly,
pressure.
exactly.
But he delivered. He understands like he doesn't have to go that. He doesn't have to take that route.
Such a weird movie.
I mean, if
In
you
a
see
great way.
if you see all these movies, also, it's like some people do it for the sake of it, right? I mean, here it was so well done. It was integrated so well into the narrative. I mean,
Exactly.
if Possessor isn't one of your recommendations, then Possessor would be like an added recommendation, like a bonus.
That's why I brought it up because you mentioned like Cronenberg. We were talking about him. We elaborated on him. So I thought
Brandon
it's
Cronenberg.
worth mentioning him as well. So
He's made something else also which I haven't seen. Like this isn't his first film, Possessor. He's made something before this.
oh wait.
I'm sure because the level of craft that he used there wouldn't be from a first timer for sure.
Yeah. He has made something. I'm not sure what though.
So
But
I was yeah, go on.
No, go ahead. Nothing. I just didn't have.
No. So I was just saying, like, pro tip for those who even like reads books. So since Dhruv also asked, there's Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. There is a version of the book. I can't remember that, but there's a version of the book in which Cronenberg introduces Kafka's Metamorphosis. So he writes a small essay, and he introduces the book to the readers. It's fantastic. And you understand how well Cronenberg understands this concept of say.
No, if you get the name of it, just let us know. We'll put
wait. Just it will take 2 to 3 seconds. Let me just Google it now.
Yeah, Google around. Yeah. But Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. What I really liked in that movie was the whole techno thriller thing also happening as a background.
Color in that movie is wild.
The
orange, purple. I remember one scene, like there's one sex scene which is like super weird between Christopher Abbott and his wife in the film. I forgot. But it's when they change organs almost. I don't know. It's like he's switching between Andrea.
That film is wild. Now I'm like thinking more about it. I think I could have put that as a recommendation also. Yeah.
It's Tilda Swinton.
Whatever. I think it is.
I forgot.
No, not Tilda Swinton. It's
Jennifer Jason Leigh. Sorry, yeah.
No, Jennifer Jason Leigh's in it, and Andrea Riseborough, yeah.
Yeah. She was I was talking about the lady in the clinic. Who's that? That's Jennifer Jason Leigh, right? Not Tilda Swinton.
Yeah. So I mean, lovely film. Possessor.
So I found out this one. So it's Metamorphosis. It's translated by Susan Barnowski. And the publication is Norton Publication. So there's this introduction by Cronenberg, and it's like it's fantastic. I mean, I can't explain like how those who are fan of Cronenberg. I mean, either way, if you're like a fan of Kafka or if you're a fan of Cronenberg, you will love that. I mean, and you understand how well he gets this concept of body horror and also the existential dread, and how well he has. I mean, how do I say it? He's absorbed that, and that's why he's so good in. I mean, he has been
creating it, making it. I mean, it's incredible filmmaking. I mean, he's an incredible filmmaker.
It's a long overdue watch. Huh?
He's making something also. I feel making something new also.
He retired, huh?
No, he's making something new. It'll come out in the next.
Is it like the Steven Soderbergh? I have retired and now I'm going to start making a lot of movies.
Is just...
I never knew he retired.
Side Effects was his retirement movie, and then after that he's gone into like some
then
other
he
form.
Another iPhone, and then he was like,
Then it's like movie after movie every year, which is good. I like him. I like
5 movies. Yeah, even I like this. But whatever. I think Cronenberg was never retired. He was never getting funded. Okay. There was this one interview with Ethan Hawke.
A24 didn't fund him.
There was this one interview
was making a TV series.
Was he?
Yeah. He was connected with. I don't know if that's
no. Like... So I read a Ethan Hawke interview where he was telling that Cronenberg is not getting funded. So that is where I learned that Cronenberg hasn't retired and all of that. Wow. He's just not getting funded. I mean, there was like an extensive thing that he wrote. I'm just saying like a line of it.
Yes, he's in the early stages of. This is an old news, like 2 years old. He's in early stages of developing a TV series that, so
strange though. I mean, the level of horror that gets like funded nowadays, and like it's very strange why Cronenberg's not being able to get funded.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there must be.
Maybe he's going completely.
These days it becomes it's more important to become politically correct, or like if you're not in that, and because he won't be, because
he will be unabashed in that, right?
Yeah.
That horror comes first, and everything else will follow.
Everything else is secondary. Yeah.
So
I mean, Lars von Trier is still getting funded, so.
But von Trier gets funded mostly from Danish institutes.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
The French and Danish are a bit.
They're friends.
The French are funding someone else also. Who we shall not name.
Woody Chacha, but anyway.
Who? Boli Chacha.
Woody Chacha.
Oh, did they fund Rifkin's festival?
I think so. There was a French production, no? If I'm not wrong.
Okay, I'm not sure.
But
no.
Okay,
Karthik's favorite film, by the way. Just
which one?
Rifkin's. What was the name?
Rifkin's Festival.
I mean, he watched it and he quite liked it. That's
Karthik will love official competition then.
Okay.
Karthik, listen to this.
My last recommendation is Takashi Miike's Audition, which is also something I was.
If anyone is,
I'm really going to have nightmares after this. But anyway,
after saying Takashi
Miike, I'll watch Family Guy after this, just to because it was very, very disturbing. Because Audition, nothing happens in the first half. In the first 1.5 hours.
I'll argue the first half is the more creepy part in some ways.
It is. So it's like a dread that the impending dread that something may happen, but at some point it just loses its steam. So I was like, okay, something might not happen.
Yeah.
And then the last half an hour is I don't even know how to explain. It's like proper visceral filmmaking. I mean, see, the thing is, I haven't indulged in talking a lot about these movies also, because if I tell you, you lose the whole experience. And all these movies are pure experience-based things. These aren't like story-based things or whatever. So Audition was something when the last 30 minutes. So the thing is, now when I think more about it, I didn't rewatch the whole thing. I just glanced over Audition maybe post the viewing only. It was more like I started noticing. It was not that I disliked the first 1.5 hours or whatever. I started noticing more details. I started liking the narrative even more. So that elevated the film to another level. I mean, some people may be like, they're expecting something for the last half hour, and they're like, oh, okay, this was only something happening. But the whole film, it works in its harmony of how it leads up to that.
The tonal shift is crucial. Like it's
crucial.
Exactly.
I think that is the one thing that will really hit you hard with that. It's like a hammer hitting you on your head. You literally bleed. It's that effective.
It's like tie up your seatbelt if you're getting ready for
I mean, it's also what we've talked about, like the whole subtext text thing here. It's the type of film in which I think, because there's of course two schools, and I think great horror films generally do this. Like they'll take that risk of leaving everything open so that there's one school of thought that the whole film is misogynist, and it's like whatever, it's a complete thing. And then I think people who champion it think it's a feminist film. So like you're taking the risk of being either, but you're doing it purely by someone's experiential level. I think that's what we were getting at also, right? And Arijit was
Yeah. I mean, I too literally had my face, like I was watching it in between my fingers. It was that horrific. I'm no details. But just anything. Just watch the whole film.
Sanjeet, you were about to watch another Mika film after this. Which one was that?
Visitor Q.
Oh, Visitor Q. Okay.
No, I haven't. Visitor Q is like, but you watch Gozu. So you'll really love this film, Gozu. Gozu is like, it's Yakuza horror. So now think of it.
Yakuza horror.
Yeah.
I mean, First Love is also a lot like that, huh? It's like a mix of complete all Yakuza.
I've heard First Love
comedy,
has like a lot of Yakuza
romance, everything, all four, Like a
Oh my God.
proper
Takashi
masala,
Mike
whatever you want to
masala.
do it in the other food
But
ka analogy way.
yeah. Okay. So my recommendations.
Yeah.
You guys can go ahead now.
Arijit, go
Arijit.
ahead.
I will. Okay. I don't know what to recommend first.
Yes, 3 films.
Okay. First, it's just. I mean, I know I've just been saying, but first is of course *Malignant*. I mean, and I'll say *Malignant* because I mean, I'm not saying. I think it's not in any streaming or anywhere. I think it's still playing in theaters.
It's out, I
Hmm.
think, from what I
Is it
know.
out?
It's out on
It's
Apple
on.
TV, I thought.
Oh, it's still in theaters in Bangalore and all those places.
Okay.
So I was very disappointed that Letterboxd they have this subsection Horrorville and they're the listed
Hmm.
James Wan's film and they don't have
Hmm.
*Malignant* and they have written in the comment section *Malignant* is not there. So I written there why isn't not it's his best film. So
Yep.
it's like I mean
Where is
I
it?
don't know. Is it? It is. I mean I was like how did he manage to make this film and release it in India? I mean the censors how did they even pass this film? Because
Oh,
it
They're
it's
just
that
becoming
one.
they're becoming
Ah.
lenient nowadays, Arijit. They have like or they have some system where they're not cutting stuff out. Right?
Old.
I think they don't watch horror films or something like that. I don't know. I mean,
Okay, they just pass it.
maybe I was like first I was like, how did he convince Warner Brothers to fund this?
That
Then I
is
was
Oh.
like,
true.
yeah. So
Oh.
maybe he got Aquaman's money
Yeah.
and and he made this. And I mean, maybe it was kind of a deal kind of thing. And then when I was watching it, I was like, who? Like
I
the
mean,
censor board?
Warner Brothers is supposed to be like the director's company, right? They've supported
Which
They
company
were.
is the
They were.
director's company now?
until
Like big
now,
production, yeah.
Warner Brothers, until they were taken over by AT&T and all those things that have happened.
Mhm.
They are supposed to be the director's company. That is why all these directors have thrived, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
like a Snyder and Todd Phillips and all of those guys. But whatever.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
no. So that's what. So that I think what James Wan has returned to his vintage style is something like I think that movie Dead Silence or
Okay, I haven't
something.
seen that.
Yeah, something like a
Nearby.
Saw. So and I
Okay,
mean,
so I've seen.
obviously the thing that I was stating in the beginning that all these themes and because *Malignant* works. I'm not giving out too much because I mean I want people to go in blindly. It's obviously about fear and I mean repressed
Yeah.
trauma and all that, etc. All those past fears, etc. All those things. I'm not detailing into that. But
Yeah.
what *Malignant* does it's getting into the film. It's moving very fast. I mean, and it's made in a very classical style that everything is in the service of the story. The story moves straight ahead, fast, without no extra arcs or anything like that. And it's kind of like the way you spoke about Audition, that it goes 1 hour. There are events in the
Oh.
middle. Yeah, there are events in the middle, small spikes of ecstasies. But right till the third act, it's like normal. And then suddenly it bursts into some crazy spree. I was sitting there in the theater. I was like, "Wow, this is like," and then it goes
Wild.
this all hell loose, and it moves into, and it's not like I mean, I'm not saying that it's maybe one of the greatest or something like that, but these days
It's a
when we're
crazy
having more,
experience.
right? These days when we're having more this suppressed kind of more
Methodical.
restrained,
Moody.
thoughtful, moody horrors. This is a very fresh take on it, and of course, it's a giallo horror, and it's worth mentioning that James Wan he kind of subverts the giallo concept here to some
Oh.
extent. To some extent, not like totally. Like there are some things of giallo I don't like, the way they record sound or the way most giallo films use blood. So he has changed some of those concepts.
To put you in a spot, can you explain what is giallo to people who don't know what giallo?
Okay. I am not a big
I'm
fan.
sorry. I'm sorry to do that.
No.
We've never done this, but I think
Yeah.
there may be some context required for people.
So I'm not a big fan, so maybe I'm not the right person to explain this. But still, I say so. There's this group of Italian filmmakers who came out late '60s, early '70s. Mario Bava, Lucio Fulci, and these filmmakers they used to make these films of moderate budget and a lot of blood and gore. Mostly psychologically, the film will start on a psychologically horror, psychological thriller kind of space, and then it moves into the slasher horror, kind of a precedent to the American slasher horror. And and a lot of blood and gore. And the blood and gore is not it's hyper exaggerated, but it will be very different from the classical American in the sense that when someone is say slashed open, there's no music or something like that. It's like normal thing. You have been cut into pieces and the body is there and the blood is flowing and the person is moving normally. And also they had Ennio Morricone. So Morricone scored in a lot of these films. The most famous director, of course, is Dario Argento. Who was also the student or assistant kind of to Mario Bava. So he inherited this and they moved this tradition forward. I'm not a big fan, so maybe I didn't explain it well. But
but I think at least some context would help people.
Definitely.
In some
I myself am curious because I have very big reservations about *Malignant*.
There are no larger political context to giallo films, but what little I could find was they were very personal films in the sense they were dealing with the small scale individualistic problems, right? Not going into the larger greater collective of the society. So that's why giallo films are very successful with people who like those kind of, like they're liking more personal stories. Maybe it connects with someone, maybe it's not. Right? Okay. For someone, it might be very out of context.
So divisive.
Yeah, very much. So, and I don't know if it qualifies as giallo. There is this film. It's called Demons, and it's directed by Lamberto Bava. And that is. So did I recommend one film? Okay, so let me finish Malignant, then I'll say this. So I was actually directly going into this, but anyway. So Malignant. So that's the thing. He subverts these giallo concepts, and there's one more thing that he doesn't give much space for being this emotional thing and all that. He's going very neat and tight, and he wraps up all the loose ends. But there's also a potentially harmful thing to it, which is that he has kept the end open-ended. So there's a possibility for a sequel, which is the only thing that I didn't like about it, because I mean, I don't know, it can become this cult film of the year.
It will. Yeah, Malignant 2 is coming. Right. Malignant Universe.
And people are gonna talk about it, and then again they're going to reboot and 2, 3, 4. Which
the Conjuring treatment, where like the first one is good or very good, and then the following ones.
Malignant is actually much better than Conjuring, in my opinion. I think it's at the level of Saw or a Dead Silence is still okay, but yeah. So I mean, this is what James Wan does. He's going straight in. He's going to freak people out. And
if Sanjeet would have seen this, I would have very elaborately also told you. Because I know *Malignant*. I am very happy that people are loving it. Honestly, it's another one of those films which I can almost appreciate James Wan for doing what he's done, but the proportion of enjoyment to like tedium for me was just when you say the film goes berserk. I was with it, but before that, I was so away from it that I just was like exhausted by it. I didn't connect with anything up till that moment it goes berserk, and then the berserk lasts for whatever time, and then it ends. Like, to me, just like the proportion was too like it was too disproportionate.
First two
acts. Excitement, yeah. The first act, I thought it began fine, and then after that, it was just okay, and then it was just like explode, please, because I need something to stay awake, honestly. And then it did explode, and then I did wake up properly.
Yeah. But also, I think it has one of the finest expositions. I think in Hollywood we have a lot of complaint that Chris Nolan does a lot of exposition. I mean, I like expositions. If you're watching a traditional Hollywood film, it has to have an exposition. It will, and something like a *Malignant*, which is working purely for the sake of the story, it has to have that exposition at some point. But I think it does that in a very nice way, like not overstating things or not saying unnecessary things. Like the characters are not dumb that they have to be explained and spoon-fed.
Of course,
but it's also putting forward that audience are not left alone. That why is this happening without any reason?
Yeah.
So it balances that act.
Yeah. No. I mean, again, Sanjeet, watch it.
Yeah, for sure, my friend, for sure.
And I don't know. I mean, if it's still in theaters, you should like definitely.
Yeah, IMAX, Sanjeet.
So, Yeah. So that is one. I was actually going to recommend Demons, but I'm not going to recommend Demons because we've already done one Giallo.
Yeah.
So the other film that I want to say is Guillermo del Toro's The Devil's Backbone, which
Hmm.
I
Long overdue.
recently discovered.
Hmm.
I mean, I knew I love his Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water,
Hmm.
but
Thank you,
and it's a
thank you, Arijit. You are one of the few people who said that they love The Shape of
Shape of
Water.
Water.
I'm tired of hearing people say that it's not, they're not good. I'm really tired.
no, but it's
It's
his like
good.
it's.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like you don't expect Del Toro to be a Tobe Hooper. Del
yeah,
Toro is he
yeah,
does things in his own.
Hmm.
This is
yeah,
the thing. It's nice that we discuss this concept of horror and its boundaries in the beginning. It's
Hmm.
I think Del Toro is a good example of
yeah.
explaining that he uses these tropes, but he's not totally dependent on them. He explores them
Hmm.
with his. There's a
Absolutely.
sense
Yeah.
of this lyrical quality in how he shapes these images, how these
Right.
sounds create the ambience. And I think that's with Shape of Water, the opening sequence. It's so well done. And
Hmm.
even with the Devil's Backbone, so I'm just
Hmm.
detracting. So he
Yeah.
works so hard, and if you see all those extras that his notebooks and he makes the sketches and he
Hmm.
storyboards in extensively. So with Devil's Backbone, it's also very culturally rooted, which I love when filmmakers do that. It
Yeah.
goes back to that Spanish Civil War time, and there's this orphanage,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very similar to Mike Flanagan in a way.
Hmm.
Uh, Mike Flanagan's treatment in
Good.
Hmm.
how children perceive supernatural. Like
Hmm.
children, they have a
Hmm.
much clearer outlook on the world. They're much
Yeah.
more innocent than us, and how they process that idea of when you see something that you don't want to believe,
Hmm.
and that's how it starts. And it's also very tragic, the film,
Hmm.
but it's also a very well done, heartfelt kind of a. And I think it's Del Toro's most personal film. Even in the end, he
Hmm.
dedicates it to his parents. And so, someone
Hmm.
who's into these kind of films, who's not looking into a lot like heavy action or something. They're looking to a nice story. They
Yeah.
they want these images to wash over them. The feeling will slowly seep into you. It's not immediately you're not immediately scared of it.
Yeah.
But when you know the end result, when you know some of the characters, how
Hmm.
they meet their ends, you really feel bad. I mean,
Yeah.
even for the so-called antagonist of the film,
Hmm.
he's really not an antagonist. I mean, he's
Hmm.
also a victim of that
Yeah.
situation. And Del Toro carefully places him there. That he's
Hmm.
also a product of this horrific time we're living in.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
and I think Del Toro comes from this. In Hindi, we say it Gharana. I don't know what it's called in English.
Hmm.
Of directors, one of his favorite directors is Carl Theodor Dreyer, who made this film Vampire,
Hmm.
that horror
Okay.
film. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
he comes. He loves Mizoguchi. So he comes from this uh, entire section of directors where directors take the horror material
Hmm.
and they kind of
Hmm.
put this lyrical quality into it.
Yeah.
They also add a lot of emotions to it. They add a lot of
Hmm.
depth to it.
Yeah.
Right. So Devil's Backbone is another recommendation. And if someone can also manage the extras,
Hmm.
they're a treat.
Yeah.
And the third film, I'll recommend Candyman because again the old one,
Old one.
Hmm.
the original
Yeah.
one, right?
Hmm.
So Candyman, I discovered again pretty recently because of the Hooptober thing, and
Hmm.
I was surprised by. I mean, I love horror, but I hadn't heard of this film much before this new thing came up. And Candyman again, it's with from the beginning of the film, it starts with this. There's this image which will kind of creep you up,
Oh
but
yeah. The opening
right,
shot, right? The titles.
right,
Yeah.
Hmm.
exactly,
The
yeah,
bees.
yeah, yeah, the bees.
Yeah.
Sanjeet gave it away. Anyway,
It's the
so
Oh
Nick
shit.
Cage
I'm so
impression.
I'm so
no,
sorry.
it's all right. I think it's okay for so,
Hmm.
and it's specifically commenting on the race aspect of America, and
Hmm.
that's why they go for this. top shot. I was wondering that why the top shot is there. Then I read a bit about it. Then I understood how this the blacks were like kind of ghettoed in that city, and the others, the whites, were kind of looked down upon them, and it's part of their history. That's why the top shot is showing that car is moving towards this, and the commentary is, of course, how we use urban legends or these mythic folklores, and how the story of people who were oppressed at some point of time becomes kind of a vehicle for us, right? I mean, for example, let's say just Holocaust or something like a partition. So many films are milked out of that, right? Like being making them a vehicle, making the trauma of the collective a vehicle. So that's I think at the center of Candyman, that's the concept. And right, and the way it treats, of course, the horror aspect of it is fantastic. I mean, I don't have any words to, especially the score. I mean, such a nice music.
Oh, Philip Glass.
Yeah, Philip Glass is one of my favorites.
My favorites.
And I didn't expect that Philip Glass would score a horror film like that.
Exactly my point.
Right. So he's not a horror guy. I mean, Philip Glass is the guy. He's a Beethoven kind of guy, but he's in a horror film and he's doing that thing. And the performance is also nice. Where Candyman, I think at one point, I think in the middle, there was a small stint of losing its way. Like
I was about to get into that. Like, I think I don't get it. Like, after a point, I don't know if it follows through on its thematic thing. Like,
right.
Like the ending, especially, I'm like, really? Like, why? If it is that, like, if the folklore is like that, why would they do that? Like, I'm just talking around it.
So I think it's kind of.
I get what you're saying.
It kind of feels very vengeful towards. I mean, it's the film is the director or the writer. I mean, I don't know whom to say this on.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the author of the film feels a sort of resentment and vengeful towards the people who are using this collective trauma. Not a very forgiving person. So there's this sense of contradiction near the end. Right.
Yeah.
So
because to me, a lot of the film is about the white academician being sort of the whole, we will culturally appropriate and we'll go and discover black culture and everything, and then basically being incomprehensible, like can't understand it.
And it's
kind
also
of like that.
It's a white equivalent of the Savarna complex. So
yes.
Oh.
So if there is any confusion you have about this film, Arijit, if you're caught in between contradictions and anything, I told this to Sanjeet. Watch the new one. There will be no contradiction and there will be nothing, because you will be told everything.
No, so even I watched it very recently, and my first thought was this was such a weird film. Because this is not how I imagined this film to be.
Right.
Like it turned into something else only completely after a certain point.
And
I was like, how did he arrive at a certain decision to take some decisions and all that. I mean, I cannot delve into details, otherwise it's like giving away.
Yeah, it becomes kind of spoilery, but I think it's worth.
I mean, it's a good film. Yeah, definitely.
It's
I
worth
really
checking
liked
into,
it.
not just for like horror fans or like that, but in general.
Yeah.
If we celebrate this Black History Month and all these things, but in general, if one wants to understand the context of how white Americans treated or still does black, it's a very good starting point as well.
Yeah. And it's very subtle.
The horror genre in general, to show like the white perspective on, or like the black perspective on what it is to be looked upon by whites. Like horror genre might be the perfect vehicle, right?
Totally.
Because I mean, Jordan Peele's doing it with Get Out.
There's also one other person who did this. This is George Romero, of course.
Okay.
Romero did that with
Night of the Living
Dead. Right.
The most chilling final sequences. One of the most.
One of the fantastic. So those are the three.
Okay.
Your recommendations.
Yes, so mine. Okay, I'll go through mine, and mine are considerably more that Arijit is right now annoyed by. Well, not all of them, but at least one of them is
Hmm.
the art house horror, and it is
Hmm.
from Mister. I mean, from A24. So I've been listening to the soundtrack continuously, so I'll just get this out of my
Oh,
system
okay.
first. So this is Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin, which I rewatched very
Love that movie.
recently, and it's I mean, whoever's not seen it, and whoever okay, so the thing with this is the type of horror which can very easily and very understandably for some people tip over into the give me something, like give
Mhm.
me something more than just Scarlett Johansson
Right.
walking
Right.
creepily towards away from a person while he sinks
Yeah.
into, this is not a spoiler because it's in the trailer,
I mean, whatever.
sinks into the oily whatever that thing is, right?
Uh-huh.
It sort of prioritizes abstraction, it prioritizes like uh experimentalism, like everything about it screams art house, like there is nothing about it
It is
that screams
completely,
conventional. Yeah,
unabashedly art house, huh?
yeah, and I think the reason why it works for me is because it taps into something which I connected with. So again, it's like,
Hmm.
and I guess
Okay.
with films like these, one can say that these are also vague or too vague,
Mhm.
right? So the vagueness in this, the vagueness is not there in, for me at least. So you there's like 5 6 different ways in which you can interpret it,
Right.
but all of them kind of make sense according to how the film is going along or
Hmm.
taking place.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in general though, just uh, I enjoyed as an experience. I think
Mhm.
the slow pace kind of um,
Mhm.
helps the mood of the film. There's a particularly terrifying sequence on a beach, which
Yes, I get
which
the one.
yeah, which
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anymore, but it's very very
Yeah.
creepy, and in how long it takes also to unfold. So that is very impressive, and I think if you want something which is like experimental, you and again patience I think will be needed if
Slow burn, I think, is the word for slow
very,
Yeah.
burn.
Yeah.
yeah, very
Absolutely.
much a slow burn,
Mm.
and yeah, it's also got a climax which is horrifying. Just to
Yeah, yeah,
just to make it very clear, it's
If the beginning is good enough to get you into the whole tone of it
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
completely.
yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah, the
even if
beginning
you're
is very Kubrick, very very.
very,
Uh,
The question to both of you.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm interrupting again. Dhruv and
yeah,
Sanjeet both. But you were to if you were to make a film
hmm,
like Under the Skin,
yeah,
hmm,
like from a director or writer's perspective, I'm not saying exactly that, but
yeah,
hmm,
the context of it,
hmm,
hmm,
and like, would you do it in the same way, or would you like uh, tone it down, or would you go more arty
hmm.
from a writer or a director's point of view? I'm asking this because that's where I'm struggling to understand the entire art
hmm.
house concept. That's it.
Hmm. Go
Uh,
first, Sanjit. You are the filmmaker
no,
slash
but
writer.
I think this was a very specific perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's adapted from a novel,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
it's adapted,
Uh-huh.
but it's a very specific perspective.
yeah,
Uh,
Right.
and sometimes with horror, I feel what happens is, uh, let's take Amis only for as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you have a certain idea where you want to reach, I'm not giving away anything. I'll just talk around it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sometimes go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
I mean, just plainly get into this wild idea of achieving this particular thing, what your end goal is, and
Mm-hmm.
then what you do is you probably, like, instead of implying into it, you actually make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
hmm,
are you able to understand what I'm trying to say?
No, I'm saying like, are I get that, but I'm saying
Hmm.
like, would you approach it like the end point is my like I need from point
Me
A to point B, would
personally,
you?
no, I don't think so, because I'm not capable of doing it, I
No, because
feel.
it's a very one of a kind of film. Like that's
It
like
is. It is.
the
I mean,
yeah.
with the director, I think he made a short also very recently.
oh yeah, The
I
Fall,
watched, yeah, the
The
I
fall.
didn't
Fall,
watch the whole thing, but I feel
Horrific.
that I
Horrific.
haven't seen
hmm,
anything else apart from
yeah,
Under the Skin. I
hmm,
just watched like a few seconds of his new short,
yeah,
but I feel that is his style.
hmm,
I mean, that is his craft of doing things. So maybe, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I
I've
mean,
never gotten myself to think about what could I have done in that, to
yeah.
be very honest.
I think Arijit, I rarely listen to like interviews after watching just because I think it sometimes limits what you are thinking
Right.
about
Hmm.
it. But I watched Glazer's interview after this, and
Hmm.
he changed the novel in so many ways. Like the novel is much more descriptive. It is about like they give you a proper backstory of who the main character is and everything. So it's detailed. So if you want like
Hmm.
that full sort of holistic
Mhm.
experience of everything answered and everything more detailed, I think the novel is there for it. And I think what he wanted to do with this was capture an alien experience or capture
Hmm.
an alien's experience in the
Makes sense.
strangest way. And I think for that approach, like if one is to like commit to just put that out, I think then I think his approach is more fruitful. I guess it appeals to less people because it doesn't follow like
Obviously. Yeah.
conventional form, right?
Alienates a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think just so it's I guess a choice on his part also. He though didn't even want Scarlett Johansson. He wanted
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
that's what
completely
this is what I know about it.
yeah, he wanted a completely new face, but it's very strange because the Johansson thing adds so much to the film. Like because she's
Hmm.
like popular and known, you
Yeah,
get like the
yeah, yeah.
whole subtext about
I
like
was,
Subtext.
actors
Yeah,
and
yeah,
when the first
absolutely.
time I was watching it, I was like, is this Johansson?
yep.
Scarlett Johansson is doing this kind of film? I mean,
Yeah,
Actually,
it's really surprising how
yeah, yeah. How'd
how
she agree?
blank she is in the film. Like he said this that he took inspiration from Bresson here actually, like the whole
Hmm.
actors as models thing,
okay, okay,
where the alien perspective is them being
right.
completely
Hmm.
closed
Okay.
off, right?
I think it works both ways. Na? I mean, the film is kind of like a alien's headspace,
Yeah,
and also when the audience is watching, they're also like uh,
yeah,
alienated because they don't understand,
yeah,
they don't
definitely.
relate.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think it's the whole thing. I think if you're game with it for the first time, the second time when I watched it, I knew where it was headed, so I was much more sort of attuned to her wavelength
Right, right,
of what
right.
she's thinking,
Hmm.
and it clicked me in a different way. Like the whole atmosphere of the film just kind of overpowered me.
It's a good reminder
Uh,
Hmm.
to revisit this. Thanks.
Yeah,
yeah,
actually,
yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
it
it's
might
been
Thank
very,
be
you.
very
like,
long.
but not now, Arijit. If you're not in the art house phase,
No,
you'll detest
might
it.
just be like the like return of,
Resurrection.
yeah, might be
Resurrection
the
of
resurrection, right? Yeah.
I mean, Mika Levy's score. I'm just gonna leave it out there. It's just
Yeah.
extraordinary score.
Hmm.
That is the creepiest thing and the most moving thing also. So yeah, Under the Skin. If for art house horror junkies.
Hmm.
Uh, the next one is something we've mentioned before in this podcast itself. That's Jack Clayton's The Innocents, 1961, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Nice.
this is much more of a classic spooky ghost story. It's got experimental elements to it still,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and it's if people are familiar with The Haunting of Bly Manor, Mike
Oh,
Flanagan show.
what a fantastic show.
I'm saying Mike Flanagan show, but he barely directed any episode in it. But
Hmm.
it's based on Henry James's The Turn of the Screw, which is like a
This
very
true.
popular novel, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
adapted into a couple of other films
Hmm.
also. So The Innocence is a faithful adaptation of it, I think.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the story is basically about this nanny who goes to take care of these two children at a big mansion who've lost their parents and are only taken care by their uncle. The
Mm-hmm.
uncle doesn't go to this house ever, and he's like ignorant and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And the nanny goes there, and stuff starts to happen. Basically, that's the big plot thing of it. So it's like a very
Hmm.
simple plot in that sense.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
direction and the writing and like the mise en scène and costume, everything in this is just absolutely top notch. Like you can't.
Right.
It's
Right.
very hard to like think about. I honestly like the problem with some super classic old films becomes with me is like it does become hard for me to be scared, like genuinely be
Right.
scared sometimes
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
It
yeah,
gets
yeah.
there is a
dated.
overstatement to
Mhm.
this has one of the creepiest images I've seen in a while, like just someone sitting there and not
Hmm.
moving and just sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's
Hmm.
something that Flanagan does a lot in his films sometimes, where
He
he
does it completely.
uses
Yeah.
it a lot and it's something just lurking. In this, the character's aware of it, but she sees it and we see it, and she's still just sitting there. There is nothing else. And it's just the image of this woman sitting far away from you, but like looking at you. It's just the strangest feeling. And I think
Hmm.
Even the
what the
sound
film,
design.
the sound design and like even the lighting. I think this has a great production history. If anyone's interested about it, Criterion
Hmm.
channel has extras about it, if you guys are interested. So the thing with what's most, I think, creepy about the film is that it's also got like these really disturbing edges to it. Like you can interpret it in completely different ways. Like it's got a slightly surrealist feel to it also, like because you're exploring everything from one person's point of view, right?
Right.
It can change shape and form, and you either this is a classic haunted house story about two
Hmm.
kids who are evil. And by the way, the two kids are very creepy, very creepy kids. uh
Slightly incestuous as well, like in the
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's and then it's also the other interpretation is much more twisted, and I don't want to spoil it. I mean, if people want to draw upon it, it's really really twisted for a film which seems like it's marketing itself as a very conventional horror story. So it's just, again, going back to it's scary but has so much underneath its sort of layerings that you can like dig through and
Hmm.
find like its delights more and more. So if anyone's sort of in the mood for a classic sort of ghost story,
Hmm.
which will genuinely freak you out, this is the one. Barely any jump scares for people who are allergic to them.
nothing. It's a
uh
totally well made classic,
Hmm.
full
yeah
structured and all that. The only, I
yeah
think, minor issue, it's not really an issue. I mean, you
yeah
just have to hold it in context, is like how the characters speak. They kind of go like they speak like poetry. Have you had your
yeah oh
breakfast?
yeah
Yes, I've had
yeah
my breakfast. How are you? It's not really, I mean, I
yeah
shouldn't complain. I mean, it was
Yeah,
how.
no, but I think that, especially when the children speak it, it feels creepy. Like to
Then,
me,
then,
like
then it
it's
falls out of line. Yeah, then that
yeah,
creepy thing comes above.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's like, why are they acting like this? Like, what is wrong with them? Kind of like that. And then the ending is also it's such a weird. By the end, it like the subtext of this, if you read it in a particular way, is really, really disturbing.
Hmm.
Uh, if you just are interested in finding that out for yourself, please do watch it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the final horror film, and this is another horror film which I've obsessed over for like 2-3 years now. It's a found footage horror film. I don't know that those have gotten like a really bad rep, right? I'm
Because
guessing.
of paranormal activity.
I recently
Yeah,
watched one. Right. Yeah.
yeah. It's and I've been on this marathon where I've watched VHS series, and like that series goes from being very effective to being absolutely garbage. So like I can understand why people are like pissed off at it. But what gets me genuinely unnerved with found footage is, that roughness of the quality, and like the camera is always moving, and like or not always moving, but it's got that kineticism to it. Just it's like uh, the music is less, and I've always said that less music in horror films to me is sometimes like the marker of already being scared. Like I'm just inherently more scared by silences, I think. So this film is an Australian horror mockumentary. So it basically fashions itself as like a documentary. Like it's people, like the filmmaker asking questions to these people uh, about a tragedy that occurred in their family. Like this young girl died, and now they kind of think her spirit is still living in their house. So again, it's like a classic ghost story almost, but given like a documentarian spin, which is like a strange. I understand it's a very strange mixing of genres, but but the effect of it is so. Again, Arijit, you talked about a ghost story, and I remembered while this time when I was rewatching Lake Mungo, I thought of a ghost story so much, and I was like so strangely moved by it. And because again, I think some of the greatest or like the most effective horrors for me are rooted in genuinely uh,
Okay.
harder emotions people find to tackle, right, in general. And I think horror kind of foregrounds it sometimes. So in this, it's almost people who have seen a ghost story. If you know that story is told entirely from the ghost point of view,
Right.
think of this as being told from a parent's point of view. It's got that level
Right.
of sort of or that from the person who's grieving's point of view, basically. And what it does is it mixes that in with digital horror and digital noise. The idea that you might be seeing something that might be not created,
Right.
might not be real, or like whatever, that tension between reality and non-reality kind of. And the experience of watching it is so disconcerting, just because I think you're caught in between these two zones. One is like, is the ghost actually there?
Obviously, right.
And the second level of it is basically, how sad are these people trying to convince themselves that this grainy footage is someone who they are like wanting to come back. So like that layer of emotion there is so moving that just watching it again, I was just like moved by it so much, and like terrified equally.
I think
Yep.
it handles that idea of pain and grief and loss.
Yep.
It handles that thing very well.
Yep.
Ghost story is really a very good analogy to kind of an
Yep.
example to it. Like I think it just does it not like I mean very naturally, not like it has to be put into you like forcefully kind of doing
Yep.
it. Right. And for an Australian film, I don't know much about its production. I don't remember a lot of aspects of it, but I remember this how it tackles this idea of losing a loved one, and you're still kind of the one you mentioned, kind of clinging on to that
Yep.
of idea of clinging on to some hope or something.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So that
And I think just the documentary format works for this type of story so well. I mean, the actors are phenomenal, actually. But I think the actors won't ever get the credit they probably deserve, because the level of emotion they bring to the performances here is genuinely terrific. And I've read more and more about the film being supremely inspired by Twin Peaks, and it makes sense. They
I
are the
was gonna
Palmer.
ask, I was gonna ask actually that
Yeah.
is a Palmer thing.
Yeah. It's a very, very deliberate nod to Twin Peaks. But I honestly, my reference point was a ghost story. I just kept on thinking about it this time when I was watching it, and I was like, what a lovely companion piece both of them would make if someone wants to feel horribly sad on Halloween night.
But they'll actually be very
Wow.
depressed for a week or so if they watch
Yeah.
these two back to back.
Back to back, yeah. So that's my Halloween recommendation.
Pretty diverse recommendations we see, like giallo horror and
I know, giallo horror. So
gay
you can like just
horror.
mix and match.
Only one Jap horror. That was Audition.
No, but I think it's covers the
We
range.
recommended Kuroneko before. No, that's also horror.
Okay.
In one of the episodes.
That's also
We did.
Yeah,
Which
I
one?
did. I think I did. This is the first one we published.
Yeah,
so-
I can't recall. Okay, then maybe.
Yeah.
I thought it was another. Okay, yeah,
No,
okay.
Oni Baba I
Creator
still have to
Shito.
watch. I want to watch that.
Yes,
ASAP.
it's
Okay,
the
okay.
Criterion restoration of that came out recently of
Yeah.
Onibaba.
It's the same director, right? Kaneto Shindo?
Kaneto Shindo. Yeah.
Want
But
to
if you
watch
have to
that.
Sanjeet, if you have to like about J horror thing, Jap horror, I mean, I'm not talking about Jigoku and Kuroneko and all that. I'm saying about the new ones, the Akashi Miike, the what's his name?
Hideo Nakata, right?
Hideo Nakata and all these films. I'm
Kiyoshi
Kitano,
Kurosawa.
Takeshi Kitano, like Kiyoshi Kurosawa, right? All these people. So then it has to be an entire episode just to talk about J horror.
Yeah.
And I think
Then we'll do one.
But
I
you
think
sleep while watching Cure.
After 4 years. But then I was genuinely tired that day. How many? Okay, fine.
No,
Now
you're
we're
tired,
doing that,
so
huh?
maybe right. So
I'll
So,
pick up
no,
some movie. I'll pick up some movie which you slept in. Huh? Don't worry.
I don't sleep in films.
this is the thing is like I also don't sleep in films, but I recently it happened after a long period of time in James Bond. Rami Malik was going on
In No Time to
ranting.
Die.
Yeah, he was going ranting about that, and I don't know, it was a lunch hour kind of thing. I was like, let me doze off. Let me doze off. Anyway, he's just I don't need to hear this.
I mean,
So
there's something this year. There's some issue here. Like every film that's releasing is 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 10, 15 minutes long. I'm like, what's up with like everyone making these long ass films all of a sudden?
I think 2, 3 films were exception. Quiet Place Part 2, that obviously
That's
I'm yet
shorter.
to
critically
see
Yeah.
that.
it's
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
I mean, that film, if you can manage, Sanjeet, do watch in theaters. It
Yeah,
deserves
is it
that.
there or is it out already?
It didn't release only here.
No, it didn't.
Arey, yeah, that's a bad
Surprising
news.
though, like considering.
Yeah.
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 I
So
mean, the
that
release Don't Breathe too, but
Yeah. Wow. They released Don't
no,
Breathe too.
no,
but
A Quiet Place too.
that's one of the films, and the other one was Venom, the Carnage. So
He's seen
that
it.
yeah, so it's like, I mean, it's a fun film. You're doing crazy stuff and all that, but
Yeah,
it's like 1.5 hours, 90 minutes. So it's like it doesn't bother you much. It's not, if it
Yeah.
had been like
Mm.
over 2 hours, then you would have been like pissed off. So
I mean,
it's
there are 100-minute films that pissed me off probably more though. Like
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
Halloween
I mean,
Kills is absolutely like that gave me a headache.
Oh
I'm hearing
shit!
a lot
I
about
watched
that.
Halloween
Yeah.
Kills. I watched,
It was really
which
bad.
was
I
don't
told
know.
you not to watch it and you watched it. So
no.
good on
I
you.
wanted to watch it anyway because I thought, ki, like,
How
because
bad
no,
can it
so
be?
no. Actually, that was one of the reasons. But the other reason was, I was always interested in, because before they rebooted the Halloween series,
Yeah.
it was said that Carpenter will be overseeing the development of the new trilogy. So I was always interested. What is he? What is his role? What is he doing? Which I've
Okay.
realized there is no role for him.
I mean,
He's
except for
just
the
giving
score,
music,
which is cool, huh?
which is great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm pointing to. He gave music, which is fine, which is great. Everything else has gone to dumps.
It's garbage.
Absolute disaster it is. Like
Yeah.
pretty
No,
flat out disaster, I think. Yeah.
no
This is
redemption
what I
points.
was referring
Yeah.
to. Like some of the films I see these days, like they start and they're like this, that. They keep on blabbering. I'm like, get to the point. I mean,
this gets to the point also in the most like weird ways. Like it's so haphazardly made.
Arey,
It's
just drop a
baffling.
fucking nuclear bomb. It's over. It's done.
It's
But
so,
Sanjeet,
and
we
it's
should
also
have-
like it's also like so self-serious about the. I'm like loosen
Way
up a
too much
little bit.
serious. Way too much serious.
I'm like, it's about a serial killer who can kill anyone. Loosen up. Like, why are you so like up its own like whatever? Just
Evil
loosen
dies
up a little bit.
tonight.
Yeah, I'm just
Sanjeet, we
like,
should have like at least we should have spoken about Ram Gopal Verma's Bhoot.
Booth.
yeah, why, Sanjeet? You
Yeah.
didn't bring this up.
I was
This is
actually expecting
shocking.
Sanjeet
We're still recording, just so you know. We can still talk
I
about
like-
Booth.
When is
I've not
Sanjeet
seen it
gonna
in a long.
speak
Isn't
about
that a
RGB?
Exorcist ripoff?
Not really. I mean,
Ah.
it's a similar kind of a story, but it's.
I mean, the same story.
I mean, but I mean,
Yeah, but just Fardeen
कब से
Khan
मैं
is
कह रहा
the
हूँ-
culprit, not the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Wow,
but this-
way to
another
give away
film-
the reveal.
The
I mean,
more
culprit
like-
can be of a lot of things, no?
But anyway.
more than Bhoot, I loved his Con.
Corn, I remember
Corn
being
is
supremely creeped out by.
fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
So I think I mean,
Manoj
Bhoot was-
Bajpayee, and
Okay.
then the ending. My God.
Urmil
RGB was
Matondkar's done a
shit.
lot of these movies, though, right? A lot of the scary,
Yeah,
creepy
yeah.
sort
All
of.
of it. I think
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
Rangila she did till I don't know till which I think.
No, just like horror movies with. In general, she's done a lot. Like those thriller horror.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
RGB is the man of like, and you being a fan, I was half expecting like
That's
Is he
true.
gonna
I
bring up-
forgot. I
Yeah,
thought you were gonna go
absolutely.
full into it. That's so
I was
disappointing,
like expecting
Sanjeet.
that Sanjeet is gonna be RGB and Foop is one of
And
my
where's
recommendations.
Anurag Kashyap's reference here with that
What?
awful
Which
thing
one?
he made in Ghost Stories?
Why would I talk
Ah.
about it? We've already
That's-
spoken about it so
That
many
was Anurag
times.
Kashyap's tribute to David Cronenberg.
And like
Exactly,
I
yeah.
think Jay Horror and all also, no, didn't he drop on a lot of it? Like I was just
The
like
kid
kind of,
and
with-
and even the grading
Ju-
was
Omen
kind
and
of,
everything, and I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what are you
Right,
doing,
right.
man? Like, why is Anurag Kashyap doing this?
But Sanjeet, you should
whatever.
have recommended Foop and like
Foop?
explained the cult. I
Agyat.
think you are the only one who's a
Agyat.
fan of that. film.
Agyat only Dhruv will recommend.
I watched it in the cinema. I remember watching it in the cinema.
Only Dhruv can
So
recommend
proper
Agyat.
horror comedy. To like I've given the most depressing horror recommendation, right? Watch Agyat then. It's the biggest. It's the most funny thing.
You know,
No, but yeah.
RGV did this one horror film called Raat.
Okay.
And at
Ah.
that point, Hindi films didn't necessarily have a lot of good sort of horror thrillers or just thrillers in general.
Right,
I mean, your basic thrillers were like whatever Ramses were making in the 80s. But
Right.
after a point, that B horror had also vanished. Then it was just like nothingness. Then there was this 100 Days, which was like a very good thriller with Jackie Shroff and Madhuri Dixit. And then RGV made this movie called Raat in Telugu, and then it was like he did the similar thing with what he did with Shiva. He released it in Hindi.
Right.
And it got a lot of rave reviews at that point. It was because it was like a horror and nobody was doing this kind of horror at that point. So RGV still stands out.
I mean, I remember liking a couple of the stories from Darna Mana Hai.
Darna Mana Hai.
Darna Mana
Yeah,
Hai,
the
right,
Saif Ali Khan, Boman Irani story.
I
That's
love the
creepy.
one-
What's the really weird one when everyone turns into apples?
I
Like,
was
it's so
gonna say that.
wacky
Shilpa
stuff.
Shetty.
Shilpa
You
Shetty.
rem- Yeah, there's
Okay.
the last one. I don't know if that's the last one.
The Aftab Shivdasani one where he
The
like
kid was
Stop.
beaten with a whip. Which one was that?
The
teacher
maths
was-
teacher.
Maths teacher.
Oh yeah, he goes completely
Oh,
nuts,
shit.
right?
I'm getting
Yeah.
goosebumps.
That
I'm
was-
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I
and then there's the Vivek Oberoi one, right? Where some
He's
police at the
Nana Patekar.
Nana Patekar, yeah.
I think all the
Crazy.
stories are nice in that sense.
Yeah, it's fun. Like Danna Mana is fun. I don't know
yeah,
what
yeah.
happened with Danna Zaruri. I don't really.
There was
recall
one
watching
story by Aftab also in one segment.
Yep.
I'm not saying what it
Statue.
was because
Statue,
something,
stop.
right? Yeah.
yeah, and then the twist is fantastic.
It's lovely. I didn't know Darna Zaruri Hai mein. I remember the first segment,
Hmm.
which is directed by Sajid Khan, which I like.
Oh, it's
I
all different directors. I thought it was like
No,
all
no, no.
RGV.
Darna Zaruri Hai
Hmm.
was different directors.
Okay.
One was Sajid Khan, one was Praval Raman.
Sajid
one
Khan
was-
is in Houseful Sajid Khan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was his first directorial thing that he ever did before Hey Baby.
What's the first one? The cinema hall.
The cinema hall, which has
That's
Manoj
directed by
Pahwa.
him.
Yeah. And I love it.
Okay.
Is it?
And I don't remember anything
Where is
else.
it available?
Apart from that.
Well,
But-
now you know you literally genuinely put me in the mood to watch Darna Mana Hai. I do
Yeah,
want to watch
I'm
it
checking right now. Where is it available?
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, it's on Amazon Prime. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, Amazon Prime. Nice.
Yeah.
I might not
Yeah.
sleep and just watch Darna Mana Hai then.
Yeah, I was thinking, wait, let's just
Yeah.
watch it now.
Okay.
Because-
So
I mean, these kind of films were like for us, it was like a fresh air kind of thing because we used to
Yeah.
get, like Sanjeet mentioned, a lot of those. Boom.
Yeah.
Ah,
Vikram
out
Bhatt.
of the door.
Vikram Bhatt horror films.
Yeah,
Raz.
Scratching and White
Was
Clothes.
Raz 2 and Raz 3 are like.
my God.
Ooh, that kind of. Raz 2 still had nice songs.
It was genuinely scarred by 1920 when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've heard like a couple of friends being genuinely scarred. It's The Exorcist, you know, like literally. The
Exorcist, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I was watching it and my sister's sitting next to me and she was like a huge horror buff, my elder sister, obviously.
Mhm.
And she's like, hey, this is The Exorcist. This is it. I'm like, why would I pay attention to it? I was genuinely scared.
I still remember there's one really creepy image in that when someone's eating a cat. I think.
Oh, it's there in the film. Yeah.
Right?
No, I was the one scene, the one shot that I remember. It's not like a God's eye view, but it's like
Yeah.
from the top, from an elevated angle.
Hmm.
And the female character Ada Sharma,
Hmm.
she's possessed and she's just running away like this with like moving her shoulders. आगे पीछे. I was like, what?
I love the
was
backstory behind
genuinely
it as well.
scared.
Like the
So
context
that's the
behind
only. But then apart from that, it's what Phobia and what's the good Hindi films I know is Phobia and Tumbad is like some other level compared to
Tumbar
everything.
is not. Yeah, Tumbar has a lot of things into it. It's also
Yeah.
psychological.
Yeah.
Folklore horror and then the
I
other
think
stuff.
Tumbad has set another standard. I think
Yeah.
so. People will have to really
Tumbar
work
is our
for it.
version of the Robert Eggers. Like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, we've gone basically without mentioning Eggers, who's making a
Yeah.
lot of other
But
projects.
then
right?
we've he's making the Northman now.
Northman and then
Northman, after
Nosferatu remake. Right?
Nosferatu, yes, which is
Yeah.
what I am waiting for.
Nice.
While
Anya
Nice.
Taylor-Joy, another
That's
one.
my favorite Munra
Like-
movie. But
waiting
Yeah.
when he's gonna make Nosferatu. So, and
But
Robert
anyway.
Eggers making that is So yeah, so we had
Yeah.
pretty good
Many
Indian horror
recommendations.
films.
Yeah.
Like this is like a glossary of
Glossary.
recommendations of like everything.
Oh,
The only
yeah,
one
yeah.
I didn't
Way
like
too many, huh?
in recent times is this Anurag Kashyap one, who is like a very promising director but did not deliver.
Uh,
And the Water Manager was fantastic, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, then Zoya Akhtar was also very tepid, I thought, and then Karan Johar was
And
well.
Karan Johar is Karan Johar, so like we
Yeah.
don't.
What a way! What a way to end this podcast talking about Karan Johar, right? Okay, lovely episode. Thank you, Arijit, for coming on for this
Right.
episode.
Really
Please
had fun.
follow us on Instagram. It helps us a lot at queensdead.film podcast. You can follow us on Spotify and share it with friends who'd like to listen about films, because talking about films and listening about films is great. I don't know what I'm saying at this point. It is 4:20
Should have
a.m.
said, because I thought you for once I'm gonna say done now. Zaruri hai.
Darna zaruri hai. Okay.
And then put an end to it. So I was gonna-
Darna zaruri hai. But and follow Arijit.
No, okay, it's
on-
fine. Yeah, it's okay. You spoiled it after this.
I spoiled it. No, I spoiled it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Bas khatam.
Khatam. Okay. Khatam.